Thank you for the introduction from Peter and Rachel. I think, as you said, the college have seen that programme and are very much supportive of that approach. And I personally am quite interested in looking at that a bit further as well, because I've not been able to get into the weeds of that. So definitely interested in looking at that. So as Rich said, I'm a Leadership Development Manager at the College of Policing. I've been there for 2 years, and I'm actually quite happy to be here today, just to have a bit of a nosy around the campus. I'll be starting in September, so I'm looking forward to joining Northumbria University on an MBA programme ready in September, but it's a remote learning programme, so I'll be working from home quite a lot, I think. But yeah, really happy to speak to you today. What I'm going to cover is a broad approach that the college is taking. The college is going through a massive transformation programme at the moment, basically gearing ourselves up to respond to this agenda. I think we've got a long way to go. I think we're definitely putting the right things in place, the right structure in place internally to help us serve the police service and the public externally. So I think we are putting things in place, and then I'll do a deep dive into how we're actually doing that pragmatically. So where we're taking that restructure and that kind of transformation of the college, and how that's feeding through to the work that we're doing. So I'll do a deep dive into my area of work, just to show you an example of where we are trying to make that change, and take products and services to policing a lot more and work in collaboration. So if you don't know who the College of Policing are, we're an arm's length body of the Home Office, in case anybody didn't know. We're a statutory authority, and we're in place to set standards for policing, and that's been our kind of remit since 2012, since we were established. In 2016, we also took on the authority to set licence to practice, so that's another responsibility the college has. But essentially we're there to support the police service and to set those standards and guiding principles around policing. In 2012, Theresa May, then Home Secretary, set the direction of the College of Policing as a disruptor. So we were there to get into policing and to challenge policing, and to make sure that we were pressing that agenda for stronger standards and driving policing in a different direction, almost as an external body imposing ourselves on the service and making sure that we were pulling the service up to where we thought the service needed to be. That has naturally, organically changed since 2012, but I think driven by Policing Minister Nick Hurd and by our new Chief Executive Mike Cunningham, that direction is changing much more rapidly, and we are taking a much more collaborative approach in many areas to working with the service and making sure that we are linked in and we're not just some ivory tower organisations, a bunch of academics sat over in a different part of the world from policing and really not tied into what is the reality of policing. So we're trying to be much more collaborative, bringing products and services to policing and working with policing partners to make sure that we are listening and developing things that will actually serve officers and staff. So part of that programme, I don't know if you can see that, but that is our plan on the page. So this is a consultation we ran last year, basically to determine, just almost press pause and go, what is the direction of the college, what are we here to do, what's our purpose for policing, and how can we serve the policing community better, and therefore communities better and society better. So the three principles of sharing knowledge and best practice, setting standards, and being that professional support for policing is still there. But the driving thing, and the bit I would like to draw your attention to, is that connection to the police service, and that's what Mike Cunningham is pushing for, that we are getting out there and communicating more effectively, but also that our language changes. We're not just using academic language, and we're not just setting legislation, that our language is more approachable, and that when we're developing products for the community, that people relate to it and it makes sense to them and it's pragmatic. So that's the direction we're going, and you will see that start to change, both in our branding, in the tone of language we're using, in the products and services that we're putting out there, and the style of those products and services. giving people services that are much more accessible to them, and making sure that when they're out on the ground, that the services we're offering is appropriate and people can access them as and when they need them. So we're trying to drive that kind of personal responsibility for learning and development as well from the approach that we're taking. So part of that is supporting professional development, and you'll notice at the end of that phrase there, helping to nurture and select leaders at all levels, and that is kind of part of my remit, but that is what we're wanting to push, is that we're not treating leaders as a hierarchical thing. It's leaders wherever you exist in policing, whether you're a member of staff in a call centre, or whether you're out on the ground, or whether you're a chief constable, you are a leader, and we're hoping to support that development through the products and services that we're offering. The other agenda that is pushing our work, so there's two pieces of work that are driving this agenda. So realising Policing Vision 2025. Part of this is around creating the right culture around workforce transformation and development. I think for the college to try and shift that just on our own is a challenge, but I think I've seen, even in my 2 years in the College of Policing, I've seen a shift in that, the openness to different approaches and the openness to kind of being challenged on what is being delivered. So I think even the service as a whole is starting to shift, even in the 2 years that I've been involved. And I think creating that culture is the most important thing for this agenda to land. And the products and services that we're offering won't land effectively if we don't put the time and effort into creating that kind of ready culture, where people are critical thinkers and they're ready to be challenged in their thinking, and they're open to or hungry to learn and develop themselves. So I think that's the drive we need to push from our perspective, and I think we're working with forces to try and set that tone across policing. I think that culture is the kind of foundation for all of this work. Whether it's the PCBA, or whether it's the area that I'm working in, or whether it's different entry routes into policing, it has to be the right culture. And I think that's something we're going to have to keep driving from our perspective. Again, very busy slide. I'm not going to go into too much detail around this. But essentially this is a directorate that I sit within, so this is a Workforce Development Directorate. This is a current draft version of this directorate, and you'll see a number of areas of focus there. So we're pushing the wellbeing agenda. We've recently developed a senior leaders hub, which I'll come back to later on. And all these areas, aside from one, we want to collaborate with policing on. The only outlier is diversity and inclusion. That is one area where we think we still need to be disruptors. We think that agenda, or that item, is not moving on fast enough in policing, and we have to be much more we have to provide much more challenge from our perspective on driving that particular area. But the other areas that are sat around that, I think that we're looking to collaborate and approach policing much more strongly on. And the area that I sit within is leadership development. So that particular area of driving leadership development at all levels in policing. So I'm currently working on a project that's a Police Transformation Fund Leadership and Management Development Project. We received the fund in 2018, and since then we've got until March 2020 to deliver a series of leadership development opportunities and resources that are going to support professionals in policing at all levels, but with a kind of a bias towards frontline leaders and first-line managers. The reason for that being, we feel that historically we've catered quite strongly for the senior leadership. We've got the SLDP, we've got FCC, we've got the newly established Aspire programme. There's a lot there for senior officers in policing in terms of support from the college. And recent years we've been not providing as much support to leaders who are early in their career, so sergeants through to chief inspectors. So that is our kind of drive with this project. It's driven by the leadership review in 2015, so recommendation 6 says we have to, or we want to provide leadership development opportunities to leaders at all levels, and also driven by Policing Vision 2025. But that is the driving force of the work that I'm currently doing. So there's a number of design principles that sit below that work, or kind of cover that work. Obvious one is that it's evidence-based, so it's taking on board leadership review, taking on board programs of study that are currently being reported, so the frontline review. There's a piece of science research ongoing in the college to inform this product, and obviously we're kind of working in collaboration with forces as we develop each resource or each tool that we're developing. So it has to be evidence-based and it has to be pragmatic and useful for the service. We're following the 70-20-10 model. We want our resources to be accessible, but we also want people to take responsibility for their own learning and to support that collaboration and collaborative peer-to-peer learning. So the project that we're running at the moment is to support that, both through taking workshops to people and taking development to people in forces, but also setting up online platforms to enable that kind of personal development or self-driven personal development, but also online collaboration as well. We want that to be self-paced and self-administered, and we want to create reflective practitioners. So we want to create a culture where people are responsible for their learning, but also they're critically reflective as well, and are kind of considering how to learn from their experiences. So there's a number of initiatives in place to support that as well. In 2018, we launched Leadership Learning, which is a platform which hosts a number of CMI qualifications. So they're leadership qualifications which are accessible to all in policing. If someone feels that they would like that opportunity, that the Leadership Learning platform is there, but it's there to support people who perhaps are ready to progress and they want to take that responsibility themselves, but there's currently nothing in place in their force to support that, so they can go online and opt into that. There is a fee involved in that, but it is there to help progress people in their leadership development specifically. So this is what the platform looks like. It's, again, not the clearest, but I'm hoping there's a screen nearer to you that you can see. But you'll see there are a number of areas to this platform. So there's a series of toolkits that we're developing in partnership with different areas of policing. There's a number of workshops. There's a collaborative area to the platform. And then, like I said, there's the qualifications that I mentioned a minute ago. So this is what the toolkits look like. So there's a series of workbooks, and I'll cover the toolkits in a bit more detail in a second, but this is just to give you a flavour of what the platform will look like once it's launched. And then there's a collaborative area to that platform as well. So the toolkits, we've got 4 different toolkits. We have a study skills toolkit, which is there to support people who are either stepping into academia for the first time or are coming back to it after a bit of a gap. It's there to support people who are coming in at different entry routes, or who might even be doing something like the PCDA and want a bit of an upskill or a refresher on what approaches to take to kind of academic development and research. And then we've got Leadership and Management Toolkit, which is there to support people who are in their first 30 to 60 or 90 days in post. Essentially there to support people in those key leadership and management skills in that new role, and to help them progress their development in that area. It can either be there as a check-in, and this is probably something to say about all the toolkits. You can either check in and use it as a reference, or you can work yourself way through the different workbooks and modules to progress your development. We have a coaching toolkit which has some fundamentals around coaching, some core principles around coaching and models, and then within that will sit a collaborative area or an area to access mentors and coaches within your region, so that you can, rather than having to go within your force for a coach or a mentor, you can access regional or national coaches and mentors to support you in your development. And then we are working with the Police Superintendents Association to develop a specific toolkit around superintendents and the powers and responsibilities you take on as a superintendent. Again, that's accessible to everyone. So if you're a chief inspector and you're looking to progress to a superintendent role, it's there to help you progress your development in that area as well. So we're working quite closely with Paul Griffiths at the Superintendent Association to deliver that. We've been out for consultation with the toolkits. They are at a particular stage right now where the content's being finalised. Throughout the summer, we're then going to work on developing them further in terms of content and media, making them much more engaging and interactive. But they should be available from the start of September. So each of the toolkits will be launched at different points in September for people to access. We have a series of workshops which are being delivered regionally from the start of September through to March. We're taking to different regions around the country. So we're working in partnership with forces to deliver these workshops. And essentially we're asking them to bring best practice in case study content, and we're bringing thought leadership from outside and developing the kind of methodology that sit around each of those workshops. But the intention is that we're bringing, rather than asking people to come to the college, to a college site around the country, we're taking development to people and getting people engaged in that progression. If people can't attend, we're offering a series of webinars and different ways of capturing the content of those workshops, either via blogs or podcasts or whatever it might be, to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to get to the content of those workshops. That's just a quick overview of the workshops that we will be delivering. So performance management, developing and motivating staff, one specifically around resilience and wellbeing, which is linked back to the National Wellbeing Service, leading through change in the political arena. Those 5 different topics were set by an initial piece of research, which identified those areas as kind of supportive elements that were required at the level that we're intending this for. Again, I'll say that it's open to everyone in policing, but there's a bias towards that kind of frontline leadership position. We've also, going back to the topic of developing the right culture for this development and for these initiatives, we're developing a coaching, or we have delivered a coaching for high performance package. We delivered a series of workshops through May and just finished on Tuesday actually. So we've delivered 6 workshops around the country, basically to deliver a package to forces for them to take back internally to help upskill their frontline leaders around those coaching for high performance skills. So how can I have an informal conversation with one of my team members to help them reflect on what's just happened to them and take some learning away from that. So that is a small element of us trying to establish that culture. So that kind of hotbed of trying to create that critical thinking and within different teams, and to give people that kind of understanding of how to learn from experience, and then to feed that into their kind of ongoing professional development. So like I said, they have been delivered over the last few weeks. We are looking to deliver a few more towards the end of the year. They have been fairly successful, so we want to keep going with that and get that package out there to support forces. We're also, over the last few months, we've been piloting action learning steps in the Southwest with a number of organisations. So we've got Devon and Cornwall, Dorset Police, EDF Energy, Devon Fire and Rescue, Devon County Council, and the Southwest NHS. So a number of different organisations have been part of this pilot. We think we've used that as a kind of test case, and we want to progress this across the country and take the package wider. So we're running a series of train-the-trainer workshops again with those different organisations so that they can take that initiative back into their organisations. But if anyone's interested, we're looking to take that around the country as well, to different forces. We also have recently launched the Senior Leaders Hub. This encapsulates everything that is offered at senior leader level in terms of support around progression, appointments and CPD for chief officers. That is, I mean, it's been very well used, and we've had a lot of positive feedback around the supportive nature of that hub. We want to take that concept further. I think we don't want to be seen as, again, catering for senior officers primarily, so we're looking to develop that concept further and draw all of our products and services around leadership together into one unified hub, which we'll call the Leadership Hub, and that's something we're working on in the background. We also launched the Leadership Development Choices earlier this year. This is to map out all the development at each of these different 3 levels. Opportunities either from the college or resources from the college, opportunities within forces, and then self-driven opportunities that people can use to progress their leadership development. As an aside to this, we want to develop leadership standards or leadership expectations at each level. We think as a kind of foundation for all the work that we're doing, we need a kind of consistent benchmark for leadership progression, which maps out what the expectations are at each level, what I should be doing, what I should be letting go of at each level, and what I should be kind of picking up from a leadership perspective at each level. It's a piece of work we're kind of looking into at the moment, we're consulting on. We are looking currently to map this against the CVF, so we're not creating yet another product, and we want to use that as a framework and to build on the CVF as the framework for that. But that's just a brief overview of our area of work. All of that is intended to support the progression of leaders at all levels, and I think the consistent message is we want to work in collaboration with forces, but also we want to take this development to the police service.
Great, thanks.